The first core investment principle to maximize returns. Diversify. Thornton Wilder, the playwright behind Hello Dolly, once wrote, "Money is like manure. It's not worth a thing unless it's spread around, encouraging young things to grow." To me, this is probably one of the most accurate descriptions of diversification. You spread your money around and will start to grow. Risk is an inherent part of investing. Why? Because when we're investing, especially investing in the stock market, we're believing that companies will continue to grow, innovate, and create value for their customers for the foreseeable future. However, because that is the future, we have no idea if this will come true or not. We hope it does, but the future is never guaranteed. Additionally, we also have no idea of all the companies out there, what companies will continue to grow, innovate, and create value for their customers. Again, the future is so unknown. Who thought a company named after a fruit would come to transform the smartphone industry? Or a company named after a river in South America will become the world's largest retailer? Or a video games graphics chip maker will become the backbone of artificial intelligence? So what to do in the face of such unknowns when investing? Well, one of the best strategies to mitigate your investing risk is via diversification. To spread your money around as much as possible across different companies, different industries, and even different countries so you can capture the upside of the unknowable winners. And it matters the other way as well. It's not just about riding the upside of the next big winners, but it is also about protecting yourself from the next big losers. In the year 2000, Nokia was the most dominant mobile phone company in the world. It controlled 40% of the global cell phone market. Its market cap hit $250 billion, and analysts called it untouchable. Then the iPhone arrived in 2007, and within 5 years, Nokia stock had lost nearly 90% of its value. The investors who put everything to Nokia were not being reckless. They were holding what looked like a safe bet at the time, and then they were nearly wiped out. This is exactly why you want to spread your money around. You own the Nokias and the Nvidias, the companies that will define the next decade and the ones that will quietly disappear. Because you cannot know which is which, and neither can anyone else. So how to actually do this? To invest for maximum diversification? It's actually quite simple. You buy index funds that give you the broadest exposure possible. Here are a few of my favorites. If you're invested with Vanguard, the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund, aka VTSAX, or VTI, the ETF version. If you're invested with Fidelity, the Fidelity Total Market Index Fund, aka FSKAX. If you're invested with Charles Schwab, Schwab Total Stock Market Index Fund, aka SWTSX, or SCHB, the ETF version. If you want to go further and get some international diversification as well, here are some of my international favorites. If you're invested with Vanguard, the Vanguard Total International Stock Market Index Fund, aka VTIAX, or VXUS, the ETF version. If you're invested with Fidelity, the Fidelity Total International Index Fund, aka FTIHX. And if you're invested with Charles Schwab, Schwab International Index Fund, aka SWISX, or SCHF, the ETF version. When you invest via these diversified index funds, you get access to essentially every publicly traded company in the United States, close to 4,000 and counting. And if you add an international fund as well, you extend that ownership to close to additional 10,000 companies from both developed and emerging markets. It really doesn't get any more diversified than that. Don't look for the needle in the haystack, just buy the haystack. The second core investment principle to maximize returns: simplify. But not just simplify, I say ruthlessly simplify. As mentioned earlier, investing is naturally a risky endeavor. Because as you saw, we can never really know who will be the winners and who will be the losers. But apart from that, investing also has some other risks. But this one is actively working against you: the financial industry. The financial industry has created some amazing products in the last many decades. Products that have genuinely helped millions of people save, invest, and plan for retirement. However, at the end of the day, the financial industry is out to make money. So alongside good products, they've also created something else: an overwhelming, bewildering, deliberately complex maze of funds, strategies, and financial products. Why? Because complexity sells and complexity makes them money. Think about it. If you're faced with two products, one that seems simple and bland, aka an index fund, versus a very sophisticated looking fund with a fancy name and a promise to beat the market, which one are you more likely to gravitate towards? Most people choose the sophisticated looking one. I mean, I did many years ago when I was faced with the same decision. And that is exactly what the financial industry is counting on. Sell via complexity. And they want that. They actually need that. Why? Because when they can sell you complex-looking financial products, the ways to make money from you are endless. Management fees, advisory fees, transaction fees, sales commissions, early withdrawal penalties. The more layers in the product, the more places to tack on a charge. And because the product is so complex, it is almost impossible to pin down exactly what you're paying and for what. And this is why I'm such a big advocate of simple investing. As mentioned earlier, 1 or 2 simple broad market index funds. Not only is what the fund is trying to do very transparent, track the market, nothing more, nothing less, the costs are also very easy to understand. Most of them charge a simple expense ratio on assets invested. But for me personally, simplicity does so much more than just these immediate benefits. You gain clarity. You can actually explain your investment strategy in one sentence because you understand what you own and why. Additionally, it completely eliminates the temptation to fiddle with your portfolio. People with complex 35-fund portfolios, they're constantly tempted to buy and sell in order to achieve the perfect asset allocation. Well, when you're managing just 1 or 2 simple index funds, even if you want to fiddle, there isn't much you can do. So what happens? You get to live on with your life instead of constantly looking at your portfolio. On a side note, think about why the iPhone became the most successful consumer product in history. It was not the most technically advanced phone on the market when it launched. Nokia and others had smartphones with more features. But what Apple understood and what everyone else missed was that people do not want complexity. They want something that just works. One button, a clear screen, no manual required. Steve Jobs obsessed over removing everything unnecessary until what the user experienced felt effortless. The result? Nokia, with all its features and complexity, lost nearly 90% of its value within 5 years of the iPhone's arrival. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. A quick pause before we get to principle 3. This video covers a lot, so I put together a free PDF guide. Everything we're discussing today distilled into one clean reference you can actually use. All 5 principles, the rationale, as well as the data. No fluff, just the essentials. Grab it for free at the link in the description below. And if this is making you want to just stop watching financial content and start acting on it, that is exactly what the Financial Tortoise community is built for. A private membership community with my full course library, live Q&A, and direct access to me via one-on-one. However, enrollment is limited and opens only a few times a year. So if you want to be the first to be notified when it opens again, please join the waitlist at financialtortoise.com/community. Alright, with that, let's keep going. The third core investment principle to maximize returns. Keep costs low. There are many things in investing that you cannot control. You cannot control what the market will do tomorrow, next year, or the next decade. You cannot control which companies will thrive and which will fail. You cannot control inflation, interest rates, or the next recession. But there is one variable you control completely from day one, and that is how much you pay. Yet, I see too many people giving this away without realizing how much it is really costing them. Here's the math. Let's say we have 2 investors, each putting $100,000 into the market at an average annual return of 8%. The only difference is what they pay in fees. One pays 0.04%, the cost of Vanguard's total stock market index fund today. The other pays 1%, which is typical for an actively managed fund or a financial advisor charging on assets under management. After 30 years, the low-cost investor has roughly $1 million. The high-cost investor has about $760,000. That is a gap of $235,000, almost $250,000. And this isn't because one had a better fund manager or had better market timing. No, it purely came from just the fees. Okay, but you might be saying, that is assuming the fund manager only matched the market performance. Well, most of them are being paid to do better. So if he or she did outperform, it will be worth it, right? Well, let's unpackage that argument. Let's say this fund manager did outperform the market, which is very hard to do. But just for example's sake, let's say they did. Well, what many people forget to factor in here is that outperforming the market is not enough. The fund manager does not just need to beat the market. They need to beat it by more than what they're charging you. If they charge you 1% and they're only able to beat the market by the same amount, technically you're just breaking even. They need to do better than 1% and to do it consistently year after year throughout the duration of the investing life. And based on data, that is an extraordinarily high bar that almost nobody clears. Bottom line, recognize that the financial services industry has built a very elegant money-making system. The complexity they manufacture generates the fees that fund their business. and they're very good at making those fees feel small. A 1% annual charge barely registers when you see it expressed that way. However, when you run it out over 30 years on a meaningful portfolio, you're talking a life-changing sum of money for most people. So this is the main takeaway with this section. When it comes to investing, fight to keep your costs low. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. The fourth core investment principle to maximize returns. Minimize taxes. You know we all have a silent friend that always joins us in our investing journey, right? We never invited them to join us, but they came anyway. And no matter how hard we try, they will never leave. Who is this friend? Well, it is our good friend, the government, or more specifically, the IRS. Whether we like it or not, the government is a silent partner in every investment we make. And I completely understand why. It is the cost of being a proud citizen of this country. Taxes pay for essential services such as roads, schools, hospitals, national defense, and countless other things that make this country function. And as someone who was a recipient of these services, I get it. However, that does not mean we need to pay more than our fair share. And the good news is that the same government that collects your taxes has actually given us a perfectly legal way to reduce our tax bill. Let me share a few of my favorites. The first tool at your disposal is your tax advantage retirement accounts. These are your 401k, your Roth IRA, and your health savings account. Accounts designed with tax incentives so we're motivated to save for retirement. With a traditional 401k, your contribution lowers your taxable income today. With a Roth IRA, you pay taxes going in, but all growth and withdrawals are tax-free. And with the HSA, you can get triple tax advantage if you use it for medical expenses. Tax advantage accounts are the lowest hanging fruits of minimizing taxes, so take full advantage if you have access. The second tool is to invest in tax-efficient vehicles. And this is where index funds shine again. Because index funds trade infrequently, they're not constantly buying and selling like an actively managed fund. They generate very little in taxable capital gains distributions. What that means in plain English is this. You're not getting an unexpected tax bill at the end of the year simply because your fund manager was busy trading inside your fund. Actively managed funds do this all the time. You didn't make any decisions, but because your fund manager was active inside the fund, you owe taxes. Index funds do not have this problem. The third tool. If you're investing in a taxable brokerage account, take full advantage of long-term capital gains tax rates. Here's how it works. When you sell an investment you held for less than a year, the IRS taxes that gain as ordinary income, the same rate as your paycheck. Depending on your income bracket, that could be as high as 37%. However, if you hold that same investment for more than a year before selling, you qualify for long-term capital gains rate, which for most people is either 0%, 15%, or 20%. That is a significant difference. Bottom line, every dollar you keep from the taxman is a dollar that stays invested and a dollar that compounds. The fifth and the final core investment principle to maximize returns. Play long. When it comes to investing, play the long game. Every investor makes mistakes. Every single one. You will buy at the wrong time. You will hesitate when you should have acted. You will panic at least once when the market drops and the headlines are dark and everything in your gut is telling you to get out. This is not a character flaw. This is a description of what actual investing looks like for real people. However, what I've come to realize that separates the winners from the losers is this. Patience, or more specifically, time. Essentially, how long are you willing to stick with it? Because just like how time heals most things in life, it does the same in investing. A bad year becomes a footnote over a 30-year time horizon. A panic sell in a downturn is painful, but a decade of continued investing can recover it. Even buying at a peak, which feels terrible, matters far less than you think if you stay invested for decades that follow. Let's take a look at a real-life example. In October 2007, right at the peak of the market, right before the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression, let's say you put $100,000 into a simple total market index fund. To many, consider the absolute worst time to invest because within months, the market collapsed. By March 2009, that $100,000 had shrunk to roughly $58,000. Nearly half gone. Every headline was screaming catastrophe. Banks were failing. The economy was in freefall. Every instinct said get out and never come back. But look what happens when you decide to play the long game. You decide to do nothing and just hold on because you listen to the most ridiculous hair on the internet, Mr. Financial Tortoise. By 2012, you were back to even. And by 2024, that original $100,000 invested at the single worst time had grown to over $500,000. 5 times the original investment. Yes, you might have invested at the worst possible time, right at the peak before everything collapsed. However, when you stretch out your timeline to a long enough time horizon, what happens to your supposed mistake? It just becomes a distant memory. Jeff Bezos once said this: if everything you do needs to work on a 3-year time horizon, then you're competing against a lot of people. But if you're willing to invest on a 7-year time horizon, you're now competing against a fraction of those people, because very few companies are willing to do that. He was talking about building Amazon, but the same logic applies to investing. Most investors think in months. Some think in years. Very few think in decades. And that gap between the short-term thinkers and the long-term thinkers is exactly where the wealth gets built. The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. Thank you guys for watching the theme of playing the long game. If you want to learn why I so strongly advocate for slow wealth, please check out my video here. Until next time, all the best.